Arsenal might have a 3-0 advantage going into the second leg against Real Madrid, but this is Real Madrid at the Bernabeu. You cannot rest on your laurels. You cannot think this tie is done. And so today we're going to be talking about how should Arsenal approach the second leg. Do we sit in and shut up shop, or do we go out there and score the first goal? Let's get started. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, your 3 times a week dose of Arsenal coverage with me, your host Mark. Wherever you are, I hope you are well and not feeling too nervous for tomorrow night's game against Real Madrid. What an opportunity this is for Arsenal. We've already had a historic, incredible first leg, and we have the opportunity to go and continue to write history tomorrow night at the Bernabeu, as you heard at the top. This is a preview podcast, but I'm going to do it slightly differently. I'm just going to talk about the 2 approaches that we could take going into tomorrow night's game. Of course, we want to score the first goal. That's an obvious one, but doing that and saying that and doing that is a different kettle of fish entirely. And I want to think about, okay, so what's Mikel Arteta saying? What's his message? How is he going to approach this game? How has he approached this game in the last couple of days with his players? And what are we going to see from Arsenal? Are we going to go and see a lockdown, a shutdown like we did against Manchester City earlier in the season with 10 men and say, come and beat us? And they couldn't. Or are we going to see actually more of the same, where we actually go, you know what, we deserve to be at the top table and we're going to play Real Madrid in the same way that we played them at the Emirates and go out and get them and make sure that we are sensible still, but we go and score, and we score with freedom and play really, really well and really progressively. Let's go through the 2 different options. I'm going to start with the shutting up shop option. How can we do that? What are the pros and cons for that? Well, the first pro is we're really, really good at it. That's my first pro for this one. Actually, let's lean into our strengths. We've seen all year people complain about the lack of fluidity up front. You know, Martin Odegaard's been way less than his best, and we don't have another option after him. We don't have Kai Havertz. We don't have Gabriel Jesus. And you could argue as well, you know, some of the injuries further down the pitch have caused issues. We haven't had Ben White for a lot of this season. We didn't have him again against Brentford on the weekend, and he's a doubt for this game as well. That's caused the fact that we didn't have Bukayo Saka to be even more kind of prominent, and all of these things have come into play. But what we have seen, and why we are in second place and why we are in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, is a real resilience in our defence. We've got players like Declan Rice, William Saliba, David Raya, I'm going to throw in there, who are just obsessed with keeping clean sheets, who are so good defensively. Why wouldn't we lean into this? When we are on the edge of history, we are on the edge of a fantastic result and the first Champions League semi-final for Arsenal in a very, very long time. Why wouldn't we lean on our strengths? It seems to make a lot of sense to me. Of course, that is limited a little bit by the injuries we have. We don't have Gabriel, of course, and we're not going to have him. We haven't heard any positive news yet about Ricardo Calafiori. Tomiyasu is out. Thomas Partey, Ben White, they are doubts. So there's a couple missing there, but I still think with the players we've got, Jakub Kiwior has burst into the team and launched on a really strong foot, playing in good form and playing with confidence as well. Declan Rice, like I mentioned, William Saliba, like I mentioned, and of course, Jurrien Timber, who has been probably our best defender of the year, I think, after Gabriel. So our best defender left standing, I should say. The personnel in that roster really makes sense to lean into the defence. The other reason to lean into the defence is because of how good Real Madrid are going forward. We didn't see it much in the first leg. Of course we didn't. They were a bit blunted, but that does not mean that Kylian Mbappe, Vinny Jr. and Rodrigo won't come out firing in this second leg. They can score goals, and they have scored a lot of goals this season. It's really, really impressive how they are able to play and what they do. In La Liga and in the Champions League, they are a force to be reckoned with. and they are that's a front three that I think anyone in the world would potentially put their hands up and go, yeah, we'll trade you. We'll trade our front three for your front three. Thank you so much. It really is a world-class position to be in, and look, we have to be wary of that. In the league this year, Kylian Mbappe has 22 goals. That's incredible, isn't it? 22 goals. What we wouldn't give for a 22 goal player this season. Vinny Jr. has 11 and Bellingham has 8. They have gone not quite nuclear, but they have gone quite well this season. So look, if that's their strength and it's our strength to defend, we've got to think about that and go, can we fight fire with fire? I think there is a danger to that, though, of course, because we've seen many times this year, when you rely on your defence, you put yourself at risk of the variance of football coming out. You put yourself at risk of like that first Fulham game where Raul Jimenez just scored a very, very low XG chance, and then they sat in. You know, they were able to just create a block for Arsenal, and it got very, very difficult for us to get back into it. Now, of course, we have a 3-goal advantage, so I'm not sure that really applies. Of course, if they score just a random goal, an off chance, then we'd still potentially go through 3-1. But my worry is that first half, probably. I've heard people say sort of the first 20 minutes they're worried about. For me, it's the first half. If they get a goal, any sort of fluky goal, even if we've defended really, really well, a deflection goes in, they get a soft penalty, anything like that happens in the first half, I think that place becomes electric and really difficult, really, really fast for Arsenal. So I think that is a risk. Of course, it's a risk if you go and attack them as well. If they score early on a counter-attack or something and they expose the space that you leave, that's still a risk. But if you go and score the first goal, you're in a much better position. So let's start talking about that. What would we do? How would we go and score the first goal? What would be our threat? Well, if we stepped into Real Madrid and really tried to take them on, they are missing a significant number of players. Of course, they've lost Camavinga, suspended from the first leg. Carvajal, Eder Militao and Ferland Mendy, all still out. And I think we saw in the first leg, their defence without those players is not that great. Martinelli did a really good job on Valverde at right back, and Vasquez when he came on. Rudiger is their top class centre-back left, and I don't think he's a brilliant player, but I don't think he covered himself in glory. And Alaba against Bukayo Saka felt like a bit of a mismatch, even though Bukayo Saka was just coming back from an injury, from he's not got sharpness, he's not got fitness. So I really do think that is the right way to go. That's the right opportunity. Let's hurt them where they are weak, And for as much as an early goal for Real Madrid would ignite the Bernabeu and make that place insufferable for Arsenal, an early goal for us does the exact opposite. It turns that place into a big bowl of despair, because that would be 4-0. 4-0, even Real Madrid would struggle. Touch wood there. Even Real Madrid would struggle with a 4-0 position. And I just feel like with the weaknesses they have, and the fact that we were able to deal with that front three so well in the first leg, I think we've got to go and try and give it a go, try and get at them. And look, let's talk about why it works for us. And the number one reason is Bukayo Saka. Bukayo Saka won 2 free kicks in the previous game, which obviously Declan Rice dispatched really, really well. He was a threat to Real Madrid. He put that fantastic cross across Thibaut Courtois' goal very early in the first half, and someone should have been on it. I'm sure the likes of Carlos Cuesta will have grabbed Mikel Merino after the game and said, why weren't you there? Pointing that out to him in that room that we saw in the Amazon documentary so many times, and doing that kind of one-to-one individual coaching together. I think because we have Bukayo Saka, this means that we really have to see if we can give him the ball, see if we can create through him down the right-hand side, and see whether we can test Alaba or Garcia if he plays once more and see what we can do. I think the Real Madrid crowd will get really nervous about that matchup. So if we can keep tight, of course, I'm not saying go gung-ho for the first goal and just pump it long and see what we can do. We need to be sensible. We need to do what we did in the first leg. Slowly build up, win our individual duels, all of that sort of stuff. But give it to Bukayo Saka as much as we can. He will have more fitness. He'll be slightly more sharp than the first leg. He played, obviously, that full first leg, got some minutes against Brentford. He's had some time resting in between those games. It is a must that we go through Bukayo Saka tomorrow night. And he really is the reason, I think, it's go out and score the first goal. And that has to be the message from Mikel Arteta, because we have our superstar back and he is growing into full fitness, and it will attack one of their weaknesses. That's it. We've got to manage the crowd. I think that is going to be the key for tomorrow night. Don't let the Real Madrid crowd get up for it. Don't let them get up for it in any way, shape or form. And by going through Bukayo Saka, by scoring the first goal, we will turn that place into a really negative environment for Real Madrid to play in. They won't be happy about that. They won't have been happy about the 3-0 defeat. I'll tell you that. Arsenal have a reputation in Europe for not being that good, not being one of the elite. This was not a 3-0 defeat by Bayern Munich against Real Madrid. It was not a 3-0 defeat with Manchester City, for example, or Liverpool. This was Arsenal, who've never won a Champions League. That will have hurt the ego of the 15-time champions, the current holders of the Champions League. That will have hurt their ego, and it will have hurt their fans. If we go and score that first goal, they will be, if not silent, booing. Genuinely, that's my prediction. The Real Madrid fans will boo their team if we go and get the first goal. And I think that's why we have to. We have to go and change the environment in that stadium. They have said all week in the Spanish papers after the game, they've said this is not impossible. We can go and do it. Mbappe was very clear when he was interviewed that of course they've still got a chance. Of course they still want to go for it. Of course they're going to go and do the things that they need to do. But, a big but, if we can go and make a big impression early doors, then that causes a really big issue for Real Madrid. Let's do a predicted lineup before I go. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because we don't know about Thomas Partey. And that's a worry for me. Thomas Partey being out, or potentially being out, would really, really kind of mess up the balance of our team, I think. I think the back four, or the back five, kind of picks itself. It will be Raya, Timber, Saliba, Kivior, Miles Lewis, Skelly. Obviously, Declan Rice and Martin Ødegaard will play. We hope Thomas Partey will play. Who do you play if Thomas Partey can't play? Well, I'm not sure Jorginho can play the way he walked off against Brentford. So not good news there. So how would you manage it? I think Rice has to play in the 6. I don't think you have another option. And I'm going to say something a bit strange here. And it's just coming to me. I don't think you drop Mikel Merino into the left 8. I don't, because I think you need a player who is going to go and occupy their centre-backs. If their centre-backs have nothing to do, are not being pressed particularly effectively, are not needing to mark a player, they will start to dominate the ball and they will start to run this game. And for that reason, I think you need the industry of Mikel Merino. You need the size of Mikel Merino. You need the physical capabilities that he has. So he has to stay up front for me. If we have no Thomas Partey, we have no Jorginho, I would go Rice in the 6. And I'd probably go Zinchenko in the left 8. That's absolutely wild that I'm saying that right now or even thinking that. But I don't know what else you do. I think you have to keep Merino up front. You have to. It would be crazy to put Leandro Trossard up against Rudiger and Asensio. He's just going to get absolutely dominated, and they will look at that and go, "Fantastic! We'll get on the front foot here. This is easy. This is our moment." where else do you go? I don't think we have a player who you could put into that position that would do a better job. I really don't. I'm just having a look now. I mean, it would be very unfair to put Ethan Nwaneri in there. Maybe there's an argument that you could drop Trossard in there, but that's a strange move, I think. Some people will be screaming Miles Lewis-Skelly. Again, I don't think it's fair to put a teenager in the midfield. I think you lean on the experience of Alexander Zinchenko, and you go Rice, Zinchenko, Ødegaard, and up front you go Bukayo Saka, Mikel Merino, and Gabriel Martinelli. Of course, we hope Thomas Partey is fit. I don't think there's any way Jorginho is fit, but we hope Thomas Partey's fit. If Thomas Partey's fit, Zinchenko doesn't get anywhere near that starting 11. Thomas Partey, Declan Rice, Martin Ødegaard with Bukayo Saka, Leandro Trossard. Not Leandro Trossard. Bukayo Saka, Mikel Merino, and Gabriel Martinelli up front. That's what we want. But if it were to be the worst news and we were missing Thomas Partey, I'd lean on experience. I wouldn't be sacrificing our physical capabilities up front. I would be putting in Zinchenko. Of course, it's a huge, huge game. It would be our first Champions League semi-final in a very, very long time. Since the Manchester United Champions League semi-final, I think it would be a statement, I think, about where Mikel Arteta has taken us and how far he has brought us along. Look, Mikel Arteta came into the club when Unai Emery was running the show. We'd just been handed a horrible Europa League final defeat against Chelsea. I think it was 4-1 in the end, wasn't it? It was awful in Baku. That was a low moment for the club. And Unai Emery never really recovered from that moment, was leading us into 8th, probably worse, actually. And he is obviously he's gone on and done some good things at Aston Villa, and they're very happy with him over there. But he wasn't the right fit for Arsenal. Mikel Arteta came in, COVID happened, and so many things happened in the football landscape that the game just changed. It absolutely changed. And he took us from a team that were out of Europe. We're out of Europe, got us back into it, winning that FA Cup, and got us into a position where we were challenging for the Champions League, got us into the Champions League. That felt like a long time. I think it was 7 years we were away. And now we are in our second quarter-final in a row, stood on the precipice of a semi-final, our first semi-final in many, many years. Mikel Arteta has taken us a really, really long way. It's really, really impressive what he's done, and I just hope these players can get this over the line for him. It would be something that we could take away from this season and go, okay, well, we've progressed there. If we finish second and get to a Champions League semi-final at a very minimum, not saying we couldn't go on from that semi-final, but let's say that was the very minimum. With everything that has happened and all the injuries and the red cards and the strange refereeing decisions, there's been so much chat about all of that. That would feel not great, but I think it would feel okay. I think it would feel okay, and we could take something from the season. Of course, we could go further in the Champions League. You just don't know. Mikel Arteta continues to prove his worth as a coach, as a manager, and continues to show us that he has more tricks up his sleeve. I think this is important for how our club is viewed across Europe. It's important for how everyone feels about Arsenal. Do they feel a sense of intimidation when we turn up to their homes and play them? This game could mean a lot more than just a Champions League semi-final. It really could be the return of Arsenal to that top table of European football. It could be the point in which we return and we say, hey, you guys really need to be worried about us next season. We just need a draw. Well, actually, we just need to lose by 2 goals or less, right? But I think a draw would be a much more favourable result to kind of lean into that feeling of Arsenal are in a really good position and you should be worried about us in Europe. A victory would be absolutely incredible. But like I said before, I think the attitude and the message from Mikel Arteta has to be go out and score that first goal. Get the ball to Bukayo Saka. Let him cause their ravaged defence issues. Let him cause David Alaba problems and issues at that left-back spot. Let's lean into the fact that they are weak at the back and trust the likes of Declan Rice and William Saliba to manage the supreme world-class talent they have up front. We can't go into this with a feeling of we're just going to shut up shop, because football is weird and random, and the number one thing we have to do is manage the crowd tomorrow night. absolute must. And we manage it best by scoring the first goal. That is the Arsenal versus Real Madrid second leg preview podcast. I really, really hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for listening. It really does mean the world. We are slowly growing here at Arsenal Unfiltered, and it really, really is fantastic to have everyone along for that journey. I haven't thrown a kind of message in there, but if you enjoyed this episode or you enjoyed any episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, please consider following me wherever you get your podcast from or leaving a review. That's really, really helpful. Helps other people see the podcast. For now, all that's left to say is thank you for following, thank you for listening, and let's hope for a big, big result tomorrow night.